Sri Lanka. What a way to start the early end with MTV Sports is Good Morning Sri Lanka. I'm your host Jason, and today we really wanted to get to know a person who's come down here to Sri Lanka to actually help us alleviate ourselves. Speaking to our next guest is Dr. Ifthikar Ahmad Ayaz. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I really thank you for giving me this opportunity and honor to speak to your viewers and to you as well.
All right, brilliant. I tried to give you a formal introduction, but unfortunately you have so much that you have accomplished in your lifetime that it's just simply hard to keep track of, and it's all in the good. So you're here in Sri Lanka to actually help us alleviate, in a sense, from the path to peace, and also to help refugees here in this country as well. So let's start off with what you're doing here in this country.
Well, actually, you see, Sri Lanka is a brilliant spot in the spectrum of humanity. And that's what interests me. I've been here a couple of times. I was here in 2012 addressing a peace symposium. And my interest had always been to try to appreciate what is going on in the country. Not only the initiatives of the government as such, but also, the enthusiasm of the public and the people. Because it is really the people who can change things, not so much the government. So it's the passion of the people, and I think the people of Sri Lanka, having gone through some difficult phases, some very tragic phases as well, have now come to realize the value of peace and the value of integrity, the value of union and staying together, harmony for a greater purpose. Because as I see, Sri Lanka is on the path to rebuild itself into the nation it was 2 or 3 decades ago. I was once working with the United Nations Center on Integrated Rural Development, and at that time, when I used to visit the Asia region, we would always quote Sri Lanka for its advancement in education, in health services. It was excellent, And
this is the improvement since the war ended, I'm guessing.
And now I think, the path is set, not only towards peace, but also towards development and prosperity. And that brings me to this country. I have spoken to people, I have addressed, meetings. Last time I was here, I was in the University of Colombo, and I had the opportunity to speak to the dean, and his team. And we had very interesting conversation on how education can play its role in the accomplishment, of the society which we aspire to establish.
Which is a peaceful society.
Exactly, it's the people. It has to be the people's society. You see, humanity is a very major factor in the betterment and the improvement of the quality of life. Where there is no humanity, there is nothing. You see, we are then working in vacuum.
It never ends, unfortunately. All right, so now on this path to peace, you also have to resolve certain, like if you resolve conflict, you have certain things like human rights and refugee crisis. So can you explain what you're doing here in Sri Lanka?
Well, you see, basically, the refugee crisis or the human rights issue is a self-infliction. If we didn't have all these conflicts, which are again man-made conflicts, if those who rule would honor their obligations and responsibility towards the people, then, and the people would also honor their responsibility towards the state and the country and the government, then we can hope that there would be no such conflicts as we have in the world of today. You see, what's happening in Syria or what's been happening, in some of the Middle East countries. That's a terrible lesson to learn for us, So obviously, all these issues have created very major problems, for the world itself and for humanity as well. See, we don't want to see people displaced or moving from one country to another and becoming, destitutes and dependable on international charity and things like that. That's not what we really want to see in humanity.
Sure.
Because every human being, whatever he is, he has a sense of respect and dignity. And that human dignity belongs to each and every human being,
right.
whatever its status, whatever its accomplishment, or, you know.
Yeah.
So that dignity is very important. And when, you know, people are compelled to move from one state to another, for reasons, you know, which sometimes are understandable, sometimes they are not understandable. People are looking for green pastures elsewhere. You know.
True, which explains immigration sometimes.
Exactly. So that's the issue, and that is why, you know, right now we have thousands, you know, who are moving from one country to another. I visited a few refugee camps recently. I was in Malta, I was in Turkey, looking at the Syrian camps.
Right.
And then, you know, there are a lot who are coming out of Africa and other parts of the world.
Right.
Now, this can be stopped, you know, and this must be stopped, you know. If people really want to move from one place to another, they should move in much pleasant circumstances, you know, rather than moving as destitutes and, you know, this and that. And this has created a big dilemma for the United Nations. They have this organ, you know, UNHCR, United Nations High Commission for Refugees, you see. And as you know, the world economic crisis, there isn't much money around.
True.
And UN is no exception to that. See, and they are trying to reduce staffing, cut down on this, cut down on that. Right. And on top of that, they have this great unbearable burden of increasing number of refugees, because they have a responsibility to protect them, and also a responsibility to make sure that they have some provision, you know, for their survival and existence, you see. So that's all money, and there is no money. So it's something the world must pay very serious attention to. Rather than, you know, facing problems and trying to resolve them, we should actually be facing the root causes of those problems and try to put them right. This is really what is really needed. But unfortunately, the world has come to such a stage where there is very little consensus on important issues. There are different interpretations, different ideologies and concepts related to human rights, related to peace, and related to conflict resolution. I mean, look at some of the long ongoing conflicts, you know, like the Palestine issue. You see, right from 1948 to this day, they haven't been able to resolve. Not that it cannot be resolved. It can be resolved if the two parties, you know, have a consensus on what do they mean by peace. You know, this is where things go wrong. So fortunately, I think countries which have been through hard times, they have learned better lessons. You see, and I think it is very right that they should be supported, you know, rather than criticized for their failures or for their shortcomings, or interfering in how they plan to put their things right. This is very important. You see, there is no one formula in the world which will work everywhere. You see, there's nothing like that. You see, formulas are there for guidance, and we are there to learn. The present world is the world of information, the world of technology, the world of electronics. You know, it's all there. So there's a lot of information, but all that information cannot be implanted, you know, everywhere. We have to make choices. And those choices depend on our civilization, on our culture, on our background, on our religion, and all sorts of those factors, you know. We know what will suit our people, you know. It's not the other people who will come and tell us, this will suit you, that will not suit you.
So we have to figure out what our own problem is.
Exactly, and resolve those problems. And it's only us who can resolve those problems, you see, not other people. They will come and they will say, oh, well, the Western democracy is the best one for you, and things like that. You know, we know what's going on in the world. We know what's going on, you know, at present here in the East, you know, Ukraine problem, Crimea, this and that, right. You know, all sorts of those things coming up, and trying to create more commotion, you know, in the already volatile situation that we are facing everywhere in the world, whether it is West, whether it is East, North, South, you know. No country is really facing a period of tranquility and calm, you know, because the world has become such. Globalization, which was meant to bring greater prosperity, has actually also created problems, you know, which you would know better.
All right, so in your opinion, from what you've seen of Sri Lanka so far, how do you see Sri Lanka developing in the next 5 years when it comes to sorting out its human rights and etc.?
Well, I think, you know, the spirit of human rights is very important, you see. And every country, every people must understand and appreciate and honor that spirit. For example, the UN Human Rights Charter, you know, only came up in 1948, you see. But say, for example, a country like Sri Lanka had a civilization, had a tradition, you know, which goes thousands of years back, and human rights were the very foundation of that philosophy and teaching and civilization, you know. And therefore, human rights is not a new thing for the people of this country. They know what human rights are. It's part and parcel, you know, of their civilization, their religion, everything, you see. So they don't have to be told, okay, you have to follow this charter. Of course, the charter has to be respected, and there is nothing new in the charter that, for instance, people of Sri Lanka did not have. You know, what does the charter really offer in terms of anything new, you know? It's nothing. Well, obviously, the charter has its value because it is there, and as you know, after 1940s, several countries in the world gained independence, you see. And several of those countries did not have any such charter, you see. We are lucky because we have civilization which go back to thousands of years, you know. But there are countries in Africa, there are countries in other parts of the world which do not have any such recorded information, you know, about their past. Of course, they had a past, they probably had wonderful things, but they are not recorded, you know, because those societies were only verbal societies, you see. And therefore, these charters, Human Rights Charter and other charters and declarations by the United Nations are useful, you see, they're good, because we have to have a norm which must be observed to make sure that humanity is being treated, you know, respectably everywhere. See, and people are not denied their fundamental rights because we've been, I mean, history tells us, you know, we've been having rulers who were terrible, you know,
the list goes
autocrats and whatever you can call them, you know, and they were very cruel to their own people. And even today we have instances where part of the people, because they oppose the political ideology or whatever, or religious ideology, they are being treated very, very badly, you see. Now this is, I think, what is important, that has to be removed from the hearts of people. You see, we have to try to instill in the people that tolerance, you know, of others' values is very important for harmony. We have to instill in the people that compassion and care is very important, you know.
And if you do that, you can move further in.
Exactly, we can definitely move further. Because, you know, without peace, humanity cannot move towards prosperity or any betterment in the